let's divvy up the blame pie for this loss. Starting with the smaller pieces first.
The smaller pieces are important to lay out. It seemed that after this loss, anytime you have this big emotional letdown, which this game turned out to be, ironically, right? Because going into this, if you had asked Niner faithful, especially at the beginning of the year, we penciled this game in as a potential loss. I think the vast majority of Niner fans didn't expect to win this one, but coming up to the game with all the backups playing along the offensive line for Tennessee, I think most faithful changed their tune. So the expectations went through the roof in winning this one, and so the emotion, there's an imbalance now with the emotional letdown of losing that game. And I saw a lot of Niner faithful wanting to assign blame to one area specifically or one individual specifically, and I couldn't do that. There was just too much blame to go around. So if we're starting with a small slice of blame pie, I got to lay it at the feet of our cornerbacks and their inability to cover A.J. Brown, just allowing him to go crazy in the second half.
Both of them. Josh Norman, Ambry Thomas, neither one was playing like a starting caliber NFL corner in this game. A.J. Brown is great, but sorry, it's the NFL, and those guys got worked, both of them. I know people want to be encouraged about Ambry Thomas, and I get it. Three starts. He's young. I think he has improved a little bit. Not good, though. He's not good yet. Josh Norman doesn't improve. So I actually think Ambry Thomas was better, but who cares? Yes, the corners.
Right.
Big deal.
I agree on Ambry Thomas, and I think that it bears playing out the fact that this should have all been happening earlier on in the season. This growth that we're watching in Ambry Thomas should have been in the first half of the season, and then we would have seen progression.
Yeah, what if he had been starting all season instead of Josh Norman? Would the Niners have a worse record now? Would they have a better cornerback now? Because it does seem like Ambry has improved in each start, even though I wouldn't consider him good yet. I mean, he might be good now had he been starting all year, as opposed to Norman, who's a lot like the Garoppolo of the defense in the sense that he's 30 and he makes the same mistakes when he makes them. I'm sorry, I didn't
over and over again.
A shot at Garoppolo right there, but I did. Okay, let's keep going.
Well, I mean, if we're going to assign a little bit of blame pie, his name is going to come up at some point in this assignment.
It's a big one.
Yeah, for me, the next big one is right along the defensive line, because this game set up for the 49ers to be dominant against the Tennessee Titans team that was reeling on the offensive line. And they produced in spots, but on third down were simply atrocious, could not get off the field. And if you're going to expect to win in the playoffs, you're going to need your defense to step up there. So I can't let them off the hook. I understand that it was other scenarios at play that put them in that bad position. And yet, some NFL games will play out in a way where the defense needs to step up in critical positions where they're put in a bad spot, and they were unable to do so against a very porous offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is an offense that was struggling to score more than 13 points in a game. I don't think they'd scored an offensive touchdown in 6 quarters coming into the game, and they came away with 20 points against a defense supposed to be elite. So I would have to give DeMeco Ryan some of this. I think DeMeco's a hell of a coordinator, and I think he should be a head coach. I felt the same way about Robert Saleh. But when I critiqued Saleh, when the Niners would lose and he struggled, often he would be incapable of stopping one guy, whether it was Devontae Adams or a guy like A.J. Brown. Like, man, Julio Jones is not a factor. Their tight ends are not a factor. This game is going to come down to whether or not you can stop A.J. Brown from getting 150 yards and a touchdown, and you couldn't. And there was no one else you needed to worry about. So to me, that's on DeMeco. You can't let one guy beat you. Belichick wouldn't. Take him out. I mean, not take him out. Double him. Do something to make the quarterback go somewhere else.
Exactly. Force the issue. Make sure that you are able to appropriately slow that individual. And I agree with, Saleh had those struggles as well. Julio Jones was one of those in the game against Atlanta in 2019. We were unable to stop him, and it was just over and over and over again. And it becomes maddening. That is where I think a lot of the emotion arises for 49er faithful, is the fact that it's maddening to watch one player decimate your entire defense. And I agree that some of that has to fall at the feet of D'Amico Ryan. There are only a couple of games this season where I lay real blame at his feet. Green Bay felt like one where he couldn't adjust, not the end of the game, but during the game, couldn't adjust to the chips Bosa was getting. And it felt like that max protection, again, was something the 49ers could not deal with.
Same thing. I totally agree. It was a lot like that game there. Absolutely. And I feel like anytime the Niners go up against a team that does that and has the Colts, I mean, they have a good max protection scheme and Michael Pittman Jr. Boom. Niners defense is all of a sudden really struggles because really you don't need to have a bunch of guys in the pattern to beat the Niners defense. You need one good wide receiver. You need 8 blockers. You need like 3 people on Bosa. But you don't need to overwhelm the Niners coverage scheme with all you just need one guy.
Yep.
One guy who goes up against either corner, whatever. You can take turns. That's all you need. And I think we've seen that. That's the blueprint of the Niners. Yep.
Yeah, it goes back to the failed roster construction around the San Francisco 49ers, putting so many eggs in the Jason Verrett basket and then losing him to season-ending injury, right? After that, you do not have a shutdown corner, right?
Also, so many eggs in the quarterback basket. $39 million at that position and $13 million at corner. So we got to get to real quick. We're going to talk at length about Jimmy Garoppolo next, but Jimmy Garoppolo gets the largest portion of this blame pie. Despite the defense not being its best, they win this game if the offense doesn't commit 2 turnovers. If they just commit one turnover, they win the game probably.
Yes, this game completely changes if you're able to even put up 14 points in that first quarter and not commit that turnover. So if you either hit juice on that atrocious miss or don't commit the turnover in the end zone, either one of those creates a situation.
Ayuk on 4th and 6. That was a turnover. It's turnover on downs.
Yes. Turnover on downs.
Yeah.
Unclear on the idea of body language coming from Ayuk in sitting down in that position in the zone, which was the clear, correct choice because he needed to gain an additional 3 to 4 yards after the catch, and the only way to do that would be to split those 2 defenders. Jimmy led him into the second defender. It would have been a tackle for a turnover on downs, even if he had caught that ball where Jimmy placed it.
Yeah, good call. And then I got one more. Jimmy gets the biggest portion of the blame, but
he does.
Kyle and John for sticking with him this long. I know a lot of people think that Jimmy deserved this, but you look up, it's Christmas. He's 8-7, and they put together a Super Bowl contending roster. I think I underrated it. I see it now. That's a better team than Tennessee. That's a Bosa, Kittle, Debo. That's a really freaking good team. And that's your quarterback? You still haven't gotten a quarterback who's up to the level of the rest of the roster? I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, who you don't trust, and Trey Lance, who you don't trust. That's it. That's on you guys. You should have had a quarterback who was up to this, whether it was Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins or whoever you wanted, someone you trusted that could actually rise to the level here. Because if you had a quarterback who was just a little bit better, you'd be the best team in the league. You'd be the best team in the league, but I don't take you seriously because of your quarterback position. Both of them. I mean, you got one guy who's too young. It's like Goldilocks over here. One guy who's just not quite right yet. And that's all. You had
missing the middle guy.
The oatmeal that was quite right. You couldn't do it. It's on you. It's on you. It's your fault,
I think it's fair to assign some blame there. I would probably attribute it slightly differently. In the failure to develop Lance would be my harshest criticism of the front office and Kyle Shanahan, because at some point early in the season, you had to see this trend coming. This is not some wide-eyed moment for 49er faithful. This is re-illustrating for us the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is exactly who we thought he was. He is wildly inconsistent, and you cannot depend on him for long stretches of the season where you need consistent quarterback play in order to win. And therefore, the inability to progress Lance along naturally, the unwillingness to put him in any type of game situations for fear of taking your offense off rhythm, off task, for getting behind one down and being unable to overcome that because you do have a plodding, methodical offense when it is firing on all cylinders. it's somewhat unforgivable because with 2 games left, what options do the 49ers really have at this point?
I was just going to say that, like, they've put all their eggs in the Jimmy Garoppolo basket, and by not even having Lance out there in doses the last 2 months, you can't do anything now. You've committed to Jimmy. You can't pivot back to Lance in week 17. Can't do it, right?
No. And just to make sure I illustrate for 49er faithful who think I'm going completely dark, I still believe that this team has a chance to disrupt, but they are not the true threat that they should be with the level of talent, to your point, that there are some amazing talents on this team at individual positions that don't seem to raise the team, right? Yeah. Doesn't seem to lift the team as it should because of that one sticking point at the quarterback position.
3 sticking points to me: quarterback, cornerback, special teams. It's not, I mean, quarterback is the most important position, of course, but cornerback stinks largely because of the overcommitment to quarterback, but special teams too. We're not going to get into it, but damn, what every time they kick off, the other team gets to the 35. But
how do you spend so much on a field goal kicker and invest so much into an early round punter selection and not be able to kick the ball into the end zone on freaking kickoffs? It's maddening.
Yeah, we got to move on because the special teams thing, we could talk about that all day. At what point does giving Trey Lance reps and increasing our chances of winning overcome boosting Jimmy's trade value? Like freaking 2 months ago. I'm sorry. Before the season, I feel like even the most conservative pro-Jimmy guys were like, bye week. Let's just give him until the bye week. And then Trey Lance can start out. And that's what my dad said too. Like, okay, let's just slow down here. Fine. Okay. 2 months ago, man. Now they say that, his finger was messed up. His knee was messed up. Maybe he was hurt. Hard to say. I guess we'll never know. Maybe someone will write a book about it one day.
Someone will, and I can't wait to read it.
The chair game on this show is so strong. Jimmy needs a better chair. That's my brother. Thanks, Brian. I'm in my Steve from Blues Clues mode. I got the big chair. I got the checker shirt.
Yeah, you know I mean, I'd be leaning back to show off this high back, but then you wouldn't be able to hear me, but it is comfy.
It's true. We just got a letter. Nice. Thank you, Brian. Chair game strong. That's how they do it in Nashville. Everything's a little bit big in Nashville. You know what I mean? A little oversized and grand. Grant Wilson was getting 5 yards a carry. Why did we stop running? He was getting 3 yards a carry. If we give Jimmy the ball all game, we will lose. Makes no sense, man. Tennessee has a really good run defense. Wilson averaged 3 yards a carry. I think he had 41 yards on 14 carries.
Yeah, it was not a phenomenal game plan coming in. Well, let me say this for both. Yes, they were able to keep Jeff Wilson Jr. in check a little bit.
Yeah.
My apologies there. Just having a little bit of technical difficulties in hitting some tabs. I was trying to get to Jeff Wilson's numbers, but the reality is that I get nervous anytime you have a game plan where it's calling for Jimmy to take advantage of a defense. When you come in and say the strength of this game plan is we need to attack through the air and we're going to have 35 pass attempts, I get nervous in that. I get real nervous.
Right, because that's when they beat themselves. Imagine if we drafted Patty or Deshaun in 2017. We haven't talked about that in a while. Skip and Shannon were on Jimmy's head, blamed him 100%. Dude, he committed 2 turnovers that were terrible. Almost had a third, missed a touchdown. I mean, it was easy to say he single-handedly lost the game. Easy to say it. The turnovers killed him. It's 20 points on defense. I mean, you can win with giving up 20 points, even though the defense definitely had a letdown performance. So, I mean, like Jimmy, dude, it was national television. Couldn't you have saved this for next week against Houston when no one's watching? You could have just been like, one of those. No one actually did that really happen? It was a rumor. No one actually saw it, but everyone saw this. My mom saw this.
Very painful. But I do think that's the point. Is it's easy to assign 100% of the blame to Jimmy, and therefore you can't take the easy route. You have to look at all of the factors combined. 15
minutes assigning the blame. It wasn't all him. It wasn't. Riddy says, happy holidays, you guys. Sign that top dollar stud cornerback, Niners. Been saying it, Niners. No, they're just going to stick with Ambry. Don't worry. Ambry's showing good stuff. Remember when pissed off Jimmy was a thing? He's not. No, it's not a thing. He smiles all the time. He's happy Jimmy. Smiles all the time. I've never seen pissed off Jimmy. Maybe he just is pissed off with a smile, like that. Gregory says Rob needs to do the prosecution case for moving on from not only Jimmy Garoppolo, but Banana Hands. The roster construction needs to be – that's old school Schuh show. He remembers.
That's back in the day.
We got to bring that back. Maybe in our mini bye week we'll do something like that.
Take it back. Sounds good.
Dylan says every time Shanahan starts trusting Jimmy to push the ball down the field, this is what happens. The pick in the middle of the field is coming. Yeah, I think he was 20 of 22 on passes that were within 5 yards. 20 of 22, 6 of 13 beyond.
It's wild. I mean, so he had 4 incompletions in the first half. One was an interception. One was a miss to Juice. One should have been an interception. Right? 3 out of the 4 were atrocious misses. It's painful.
But everything else was perfect. It's crazy. Yeah. Which is classic Jimmy.
Classic.
Jimmy gave them the extra opportunities with interceptions and missed a butt-naked Juice for a walk-in TD and missed Ayuk on a critical 4th down. Come on now. Yeah, and he hit Juszczyk on that same play in Kansas City in 2018, if you remember. They were down 14-0 in that game. He's hit that before any number of times, but he'd thrown a pick already in this game, and at that point, I thought he was rattled.
Yeah, it's quite the picture that Kev paints for us there. I love it.
Yeah, thanks, Kev.